and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I love me some Kung Fu.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Kung Fu Hustle, released in 2004. Written, produced, and directed by Chow. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the Axe Gang has cometh and has taken over the streets of Canton, China. We follow Singh, played by Chow, who is trying to get into the gang by exploiting the people of Pigsty Alley. But what they all don't know is that there live some Kung Fu masters.
你就係負責人啦，係嘛？
廢婆啦！
喂，斧頭幫啦！
So Chow was also the director, star of Shaolin Soccer.
Yes.
Which he'd produced and made before this one.
Yeah.
And it was Kung Fu Hustle that actually trumped his previous efforts, and this became the highest grossing Hong Kong movie out of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it did okay when it came out over here and in America, but it kind of also died down pretty quickly and has kind of got a bit of a cult following now.
Yeah, well, I mean, 2004, we needed some Kung Fu back in our lives.
Well, we'd already had by that point, I think, the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragons. Matrix was also one of the big ones that brought martial arts into the mainstream.
Well, Kung Fu movies ebb and flow over the years. Somebody comes along, does something really, really amazing, and we think, oh yeah, we want to watch that all the time, and then it just dies down again because we get so many repeat viewings of stuff, and then it jumps back up. Obviously, you got your Tony Jaa, you got your Jackie Chan, you got your Jet Li movies, but I remember 2004 Kung Fu Hustle coming out, and I'm like, oh man, I have to see this because I love a Kung Fu movie. Just have people thrown around, nunchucks, kicking people in the face, and fucking true romancing that shit up. But weirdly enough, we did Shaolin Soccer 9 years ago, whatever, way back in the past, because it was like, oh, if we're going to do Kung Fu Hustle, we might as well do Shaolin Soccer first because it's Chow's first movie. And I hadn't seen it, so I watched it and I was like, man, that's fucking brilliant. I love it. Yep. So then 9 years later, we got to come and do Kung Fu Hustle. And like I said, this movie is just so fun. He stars in it, he edits it, he directs it himself. I read into the background, he got Yuen Ping. I apologize now for my pronunciation. Oh, I apologise for Gary's pronunciation as well of any of these actors' names because, we're terrible. But I believe it's Yuen Ping who choreographed or helped choreograph a lot of the fight sequences. And I mean, this guy, he's done Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. He did the Once Upon a Time in China series. He did one of my all-time favourite movies, Snake and Eagle Shadow and Drunken Master. So, I'm all over this movie.
Yeah, no, I wasn't aware of the entire cast of this film, but you only need to look on maybe their IMDb resumes and see that these guys have been in action movies, kung fu movies, martial arts movies, almost their entire careers.
Yes, totally.
So even though we might not identify them as, say, famous people, it's a star-studded cast here.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually looked on their, even just one of their IMDb lists, it's just film after film from the 1970s. These people just kind of starred in small parts in the background. I mean, Chow's knowledge of Kung Fu movies, you can just tell right from the offset, is just crazy. You've got these gang guys in the police station just beating up the policeman, screaming about their wife or girlfriend, whatever, being arrested. And then they walk outside and they're like, where's the car? And as they look around, row after row of guys armed with axes just start walking towards menacingly.
I love this entire intro setup. We hear the action, going on in the police station before we actually see what's going on. And you find out that, the police are being paid off by this axe gang. We even get the text come up at the, explaining to us that this axe gang now control this area of China, and everybody's afraid of them.
Oh yeah.
But this also really sets up the comedy aspect and the musical nature of this film as well. And I love the fact that this film uses classical Chinese instruments, and the entire film score is using the authentic music or
Yeah.
the authentic sound of China. And it sounds absolutely wonderful. And we get this entire dance number with the entire gang like brandishing their axes. Now, also at the beginning of the film as well, I think this is it's got to be a nod to Shaolin soccer. We got these kids playing football,
Yeah.
and he literally just steps on the ball and squashes it. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're done with the Shaolin soccer stuff.
Yeah.
And now we're in with the Axe Gang.
And you get Stephen Chow, walking up into the town. He's got his buddy Bone with him, and they are pretending to be members of the Axe Gang. They're planning on exploiting all these people in Pigsty Alley.
Now, Pigsty Alley as well is actually based on a real location
Yeah.
in China. It was based on the walled city of Kowloon, which is a crime, poverty, slum area, like completely unchecked by the law.
Yeah.
And I believe it was torn down somewhere in the 1990s as well. But it was an actual location, and apparently Chinese people, when they actually watched this film, kind of got reminiscent of olden times, like because the film's set in the 1940s as
Yeah.
well, and we can see that it's a massive community, and again it's another nod to another older Chinese film about a ruthless landlady and all of their tenants that won't pay rent, and so this shrewd, angry landlady is governing this place, and she's not happy.
Yeah, like I said, I apologize if I mispronounce these names, but Yuen Q playing the landlady and Yuen Hua playing the landlord. Oh my fucking god, the landlord I love. Just the way he's just kind of stumbling around in front of everybody. They're trying to do their morning routines of just kind of living and surviving. And he's just walking into the bakery and he's just like, yep, I'll have breakfast. Thank you very much. Don't worry, I'll talk to my wife about your rent. He walks up to the tailor who... I mean, this is 2004, so let's just hit the nail right on the head. Jokes have come an incredibly long way. I'm not planning on slapping anybody for anything, but the tailor is gay. And the way that the landlord just kind of walks in and slaps him on the bum, and the tailor's just like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, he's overtly so, isn't he? They call him the fairy, and he
It's the 1940s. It's different times.
flounces around in all of his scenes, except when push comes to shove and
Yes.
he needs to get into the fight. He's actually one of my favorite characters in the film.
Yeah.
His martial art style is the iron wire fist, and he has those rings that he
Yes.
puts around his wrists, which are great. But at this point in the film, we don't know that there's actually martial arts masters,
Yes.
hiding here at the moment.
I mean, the landlady, though, I mean, you kind of feel there's something with her. The way that she can just whack people and they smack on the floor. She's cutting off water and she's just like, none of you have paid rent for months, so what are you even doing? Get your jobs out of here. I'll smack you all. I mean, when the husband actually comes up the stairs, and he's about to give her breakfast and she realizes he's got lipstick on his cheek from being kissed by somebody, she just fucking throws him out the window. And before we get too far into the movie, I know the CGI in places is incredibly ropey. It was ropey at the time.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it was too ropey at the time. 2004. Like it's still, yeah, okay, it feels like 90s CGI stuff. But this is one of the things where I'm just like, I will criticize bad computer, animation in films. But in comedies, I guess I'm very lenient with it because I'm like,
nice.
It harkens back to The Chosen One,
Yeah.
in Kung Pao,
Yeah.
and the atrocious use of CGI in that. But it being a comedy, you just kind of go, yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. I mean, it just adds to the element, and sometimes you don't know if it's intentional in some places. But the way he bounces out the window, lands on the floor, the plant pot lands on his head. And the guy kind of pokes him with the stick and he's like, leave me alone, leave me alone. But yeah, we get Singh and Bone walk up exploiting it, and Stephen Chow's just like, you don't want to mess with me, landlady. You don't want to mess with me. I'll call in the infamous Axe Gang, that he's not part of. And he throws this firecracker into one of the Axe Gang members who comes round the corner. He walks... Like, I question how many of the people in Pigsty Alley really are Kung Fu masters. Because, he walks up to that first guy who was taking the shower, who just seems like he's weak. And we've already had Stephen Chow like have his moment with the crowd. And he's like, you over there, I'll fight you. And the really tall guy stands up and he's like, what are you doing? Sit back down. You over there, I'll fight you. And this man walks forward with massive muscles. He's like, what? I'm not going to fight a guy with glasses. Well, woman, come here, punch me. And she whacks him in the stomach. He's oh, fuck.
你個樣咁兇狠做咩啊？諗住抽拉贏我啊？我讓你一拳都仲得啦，打我啊！
That's actually one of my favorite scenes in the film. It was the first one that I was just like, that's hilarious. Like, physical comedy, And this film has lots of different types of comedy throughout it. Lots of references to other action Hong Kong movies and Western movies as well.
But that guy walks up to the one of the residents who's been showering, and he gets smacked so hard he ends up in a barrel with his back broken. And you're like, what? How the fuck did that happen? So they call in all of the Axe Gang members, and we get Brother Sum, played by Danny Chan Kuo Kwan, who, he's your main villain. Like, Brother Sum he's angry now that his friend is being killed, and he's just going to kill everybody in Pigsty Alley unless the person comes forward to tell him who it was. And that's when we get introduced to, like, the residents of Pigsty Alley don't really have names. Like, when I looked them up, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to call these guys by what they do. So you've got Cooley, who's like the legs martial artist, played by Xing Yu, I think it is. And then we have, obviously, Taylor, the gay Taylor with his iron fist, played by Chu Chi Ling. And then on top of that, you've got Donut, who's the baker, who can do all this mystical stuff with the staffs. And I think he's played by Dong Ji Hyu. But all three of them kind of band together and just beat the shit out of the Axe Gang.
It's an awesome fight scene. We've got people flying everywhere. I mean, we know they're all on wires and stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's super stylized, but it's like these guys have got superpowers. The way that they brandish these weapons and fight with them.
They're kung fu masters. Of course, they've got mystical powers.
Yeah, and so they managed to overthrow the Axe Gang for now.
Yeah, we start to see more of Singh's reasoning for what he does, for why he tries to exploit people, and he's basically the villain. But from what I gather, he's like a really bad villain.
Well, he wants to be the bad guy.
Yeah,
he goes to the Axe Gang boss, and he's like, look, I want to be a member, and they don't want him.
Well, he's a good lockpick.
That's
They're
right.
Like, oh yeah.
When they eventually capture him and he frees himself from his locks, and he's just like, I'll give 3 seconds to rescue your friend or you're finished. He manages to rescue his friend Bone as well, and he's like, okay, we're going to give you a mission. Your mission is now to go back to Pigsty Alley and kill the landlady. Because clearly you've never murdered anybody, so that is your initiation, essentially.
Oh my god, this sequence.
Again, this is probably one of my favourite scenes in the film where him and Bone are in the alleyway and he's got the throwing daggers. He's like, right, this is it. We're just going to take her out from range and he's going to throw this dagger and it bounces off the wall straight into his shoulder. He's like, okay, all right, that didn't work. So here, you throw the next one. And he goes to throw it and he ends up just stabbing it right into Singh's arm. It's like,
oh, fucking hell. It's just one thing after another. Like, he's got 3 knives in him after, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can just tell he's in immense load of pain.
Well, Bone also goes, oh, no, when he realises. And he picks up this cage for whatever reason, and he just drops all of these snakes on him as well. He's just like, I'm going to whistle, and that will put the snakes to sleep so they won't bite you. And he's like, no, hey, don't do that. I'll try it. Immediately bitten on the mouth. But also, Bone also goes to throw the other knife, and the handle literally lands on the landlady. And it's for me, it was one of the funniest lines in the film, which is like, hey, who's throwing handles? It's like, what? But this then leads into a Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote style chase scene, where their legs are just super animated and they're running really fast. You see them going at an angle when they're going around corners. It's like, why is this in the film? It's ridiculous. But
Oh man.
you won't forget it. You
No,
won't forget it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a live action Roadrunner anything.
It's the way he kind of slowly starts. I mean, this is where you kind of gather that, like, there's something not right about this world or what they're doing, but it's fine as well. Like, when they go, like, he slides under the truck, doesn't he, as he's running, and she kind of goes over, like, she's just relaxing, like, she doesn't care, and then she just whacks this sign, and it immediately just takes me back to, like, Kung Pao, to, like, National Lampoons. I'm like, this is just absolutely great. But there's also still a dark tone to the movie, because the leader of the Axe Gang, Brother Sum, decides, you know what, no, we've got to deal with these people. We've got to deal with these masters. And so he hires these, like, evil harpsichordists, I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I just called them the musicians.
The musicians, yeah.
It's not the Blues Brothers, but
It's the Black Brothers, like, they're evil.
The way these guys turn up, like, this is also my favorite scene in the entire film.
Oh, you got a lot.
I know I've got a lot, but this entire scene, with, like, when like, after watching this film when it first came out, and then knowing we were going to be talking about this film, the first thing that came to my mind was the harpists.
Yeah.
And the way that they again, because this film very much also is a musical.
Yeah.
You remember the musical numbers in the film, and the way that they attack is through striking the chords on this giant harp.
Yeah.
And again, like, talking about how well stylized this film is, when the landlady has told these three martial artists to leave town.
Yeah.
We see one of them leaving town.
Yeah.
And we see this harpist striking the chords, and we see pot plants get cut in two.
Yeah.
We see a cat.
Oh, the cat.
Jump, and the silhouette breaks in two.
Yeah.
And it's only then when the martial artist turns around, and then we see him, he gets decapitated. It's like, God damn, so we know that these musicians mean business.
Yeah.
And this entire sequence is like 10, 15 minutes in the film, where the other two then have to square off against them. And, you know, we get to see the effects of the chords that they're playing as creating these flying swords that are flying towards them.
Like, I couldn't work out, I still can't work it out, but it just looks cool. Like, is it the music sound itself that is doing the damage, or are we seeing the swords because they're that powerful of an evil martial artist that they can make swords appear out of nothing?
Well, it's taking classic real martial arts and kung fu and all of the various, you know, schools of it.
Yeah, but it's just such a
and taking the fantasy
sequence.
element of it.
I mean, especially, Taylor is the first one to get taken out because he tries to fight them and they just smash his rings. He can only defend for a little bit, and then Donut turns up with his spears, and there's this whole dance, and the music just crescendos, and it's just amazing. And you're like on the side of the martial arts masters. Obviously, if you're watching a kung fu movie, you want the good guys to win, but they just can't get close. He flies forward with his spear, but the music hits it, and the spear just explodes out, and he's flown back. And they send these last few powerful attacks at him, and it hits Donut. But the whole time they've been doing this, the landlady has been screaming, and so you notice she's louder. And Brother Sum and his buddy is in the car watching, and he just keeps whacking his buddy out of the way. It's like, you're blocking away, and he just keeps whacking him. And so the harpsichordists are like constantly stopping. But then when she finally releases this massive, huge scream, like, they're like, shit, there's other masters here. So they leap up to check it out, to see what's going on. Now, this is where the landlord becomes one of my all-time favorite characters in this whole movie, and I think his martial arts style is just absolutely amazing, where he kind of flows with the chi. You know, instead of just being blocking and fighting and trying to throw and kick and do the most powerful attacks, he lets his opponents hit themselves. Yeah. And it's just amazing to watch.
Completely they annihilate each other.
Yeah.
You know, he literally just moves and bends, and they can't hit him. He uses their own momentum against them.
Yeah.
And he manages to defeat them, and it is a great feat to watch.
It's just a combination, because like you realise that him and the landlady are obviously together, and they must love each other, or, you know, he'd be dead. She'd have killed him. But watching his flowing of the chi in combat, which the musicians can't stop, and then her coming along and she takes that deep breath and lets out this massive, huge lion's roar attack, which just obliterates the musicians and sends them flying away. I absolutely love the sequence that happens after, where you see Brother Sum and the lawyer in the car, and they look at the driver, and they look back, and they look back at the driver, and the landlord's there.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden the landlady's there, and she does the whole Bruce Lee sequence.
Yes.
Just like wagging her finger at him.
And the knuckle and the wiping up the nose. It's just like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And so, yeah, the Axe Gang have been defeated. The crime lord's been humiliated, and they've been sent packing. And so now they still also have the failed Singh and Bone, who failed in their mission.
Yeah,
and so like, okay, well, you're a lockpick. You can open locks. We need you to go and open the cage of the beast, and we're going to send the beast into Pigsty Alley. And we get a wonderful Shining reference as he's walking through this catacomb, this prison. Yeah, and he gets to the door, and there's toads or frogs right outside the cell. He managed to open the lock, and they let the beast out. And you were just like, this frail old man with a newspaper.
Yeah, but that's how they look. But they're not frail old man. Fucking Akuma's not a frail old man. He's fucking just... I mean, on top of this, you've got this whole kind of side story where, like, you're understanding that Singh, like I said, isn't the bad guy.
Well, we got the flashback to when he was a child, and he tried to help this deaf girl. He was being bullied, and they were trying to steal her lollipop. But he gets beaten up because he had managed to buy this pamphlet he had overpaid for, and he literally gets pissed on. Yeah, absolutely humiliated, and that's what makes him decide that maybe being the bad guy is the way to go.
Yeah. And he starts picking on the mute girl as she's older, but he just doesn't realise. But she remembers, and like I love the sequence where he's laughing from the back of the tram with the ice cream, like just maniac laughter. And there's the moment where she tries to show him the lollipop to kind of get his feelings, and he just smacks it out of her hand and breaks. It's minute in comparison to the massive, huge kung fu story going on. But then at the same time, I think it works because you needed something else. Or basically, Stephen Chow's character just isn't doing anything other than being a massive comedy relief, which everybody is anyway. But yeah, they get him to release the beast. And the beast goes... They try to see how strong the beast is. And he just keeps getting punched in the face by one gang member. But he reveals that the landlady and landlord have turned up at the Axe Gang's club. And it just turns into another crazy, over-the-top fight sequence where the beast is just... He's just unstoppable. He's powerful. So he's faster than them. And all he craves is either to kill them in combat, because that's basically what he's done all of his life, or be killed in combat.
Yeah, he's the ultimate warrior. He has known, no equal in combat. And so he's like, if you can give me somebody that is worth my time, I'll kill them for free.
Yeah.
And there's that moment where he pulls a gun on himself and shoots himself and manages to catch the bullet. And he's just like, speed is all that you need to be the victor. Yeah. And he does move fast, and even though they're on cables and wires and stuff, the technical feats, the martial arts on display here is also really well captured.
I mean, it massively culminates to the landlady and the landlord taking this giant Buddha death bell, using it as a speaker with the lion's roar to just basically send the beast flying backwards and just absolutely obliterates him. But he's a sneaky little fucker. He pulls out these like weird flower death needle things where the landlord and landlady catch it, but then they're stabbed, and then they basically catch each other into like a hold, which none of them can break, but none of them can move. And Brother Sum, the Axe Gang leader, he turns to Singh and he's just like, whack him in the head. And he's just like, okay, I will. Go on, whack him in the head. No, yeah, I will. Whack him in the head. And so Singh gets so upset, he just whacks Brother Sum in the head. I'm doing it, fine, I'm doing it. And he walks over and he smacks the beast in the head. And the beast he goes on a fucking rampage. He just obliterates his face into the floor.
Yeah, just a couple of punches. You just see that his head is underneath the ground at this point. But then, yeah, he looks away, and we see the landlord and landlady carrying him as they're running away. And the beast turns around to the axe gang boss and just twists his head all the way around. It's like, oh, he's dead.
Now the beast wants to not only kill the masters, but obviously get revenge for, being hit on the head. We'd already seen that Stephen Chow's character could like magically rejuvenate. He'd dealt with the poison in his lips by the snakes by kind of just pounding the ground, and he had done the Buddhist maneuvers that he'd learned from a kid, and that had allowed him to kind of rejuvenate. So now the landlord and landlady do their kind of mystical kung fu healing potion on him to help him, and they're kind of surprised about his chi strength, so that when the beast turns up, Stephen Chow is like God mode. Like he's gone super Bruce Lee.
He's turned into the butterfly. We also saw the metamorphosis, didn't we, of the cocoon and the butterfly escaping, which also flew over the intro title of the film.
Yeah.
And so now he is become the butterfly,
the chosen one.
Yes,
now.
yeah.
And he beats the shit out of all of the Axe Gang members. He takes on the beast. The beast starts to...
There's the scene where he just stomps on all their feet. It's like, it's like...
Yeah, it would work.
It works, yeah.
It works.
Yeah. I mean, he does it to the beast as well.
The beast is like, what are you going to do? And he stomps his feet. Fuck. It's like, yeah, man, that really works. And the beast starts to go into like frog mode or toad mode. And it's just like, now he's just going to kind of Yonder launch his head at Stephen Chow, and he starts to get beaten back, ultimately until he gets smacked up into the air, like straight up in the stratosphere. And this is where I kind of, like I said, I was watching the computer effects and I was thinking, oh, maybe Gary won't like this and it'll turn him off from the movie. But it, like we said, it kind of works that it's showing he's going so far up in the air that he has to leap off of an eagle's back to kind of reverse himself into a death dive.
The clouds also form the Buddhist hand as well.
Yeah. And he just kind of falls back down, and the landlady's like, do you remember the heaven fallen palm, the Buddhist palm? And he just kind of pow the fucking beast straight into the floor.
It's wonderful. It's amazing. The whole palm print in the ground as well. And the beast obviously still survives this. He climbs out and he's just like, how did you do that? You're my new master.
Yeah.
And Sing's just like, yeah, if you're willing to learn, I will teach it to you. It's like, oh.
Well, the beast tries to use his death stick again, doesn't he?
True.
And Stephen Chow Sing kind of does the Buddhist palm and it destroys half a building. But it misses the beast's head by such an inch. He's absolutely fucking terrified.
And to wrap the whole story up with the flashback scenes with the girl, we see Sing and Bone are now running their own candy store, selling lollipops, and he steps outside and he turns back into his young self, and she's her young self, and he invites her into the candy store, and it's like, aww.
And we see that old man as well go to sell another book to another
but
kid.
Now he's got a whole series of them. Yeah, it's great. It's a really satisfying ending, and the film's almost just under 2 hours long, but it goes at such a breakneck pace.
Yeah.
That there really is so much to absorb and take in. Not all of it lands, but when it does, it really, really does.
Yeah.
William, what were your favourite scenes in the film?
Oh, man, like, I'd written a list, but in fairness, like, the entirety of the movie is just one incredible comedy sequence, kind of trying to top the last one. Like I said, I love the landlord, him falling out the window at the beginning and looking like he was frail and couldn't do anything, to taking on the two harpsichordists and the beast. Like I said, I love his style of kung fu. Like I've watched so many different kung fu movies, there's so many different styles, but it all culminates to kind of having good chi and positive chi and, good speed and things like that. And just, like I said, him just flowing left or right. I love the car bit with the landlady, where she just kind of appears in the car and does the whole Bruce Lee moment. Like her screaming, her running down the road, like doing that flip over the truck, all of the stuff with Sing. Like, I'll admit, a lot of the love sequence stuff didn't really fall for me. It's mainly just the kung fu stuff. Love it.
Yeah, there's so many memorable scenes in the film, and like I said, the one that I'll always remember is the entire extended musician sequence.
Yeah.
I love the way they just kick the harp into the air and it lands. Like they're not
Yes.
sat down, but they're kind of on one leg with
Yeah.
their knee crossed as
Yeah.
it lands, and the way they just strike the chords and the daggers flying.
Love
the
it.
undead
Love
warriors flying towards the landlady who just inhales her cigarette. You know, her bosom expands and then she just roars right back at them. Like
Yes.
it's great. But
Yes.
the entire sequence was really memorable. I love the sequence near the beginning where he's antagonizing the town, and he's just like, right, I'm not going to fight you all at once. I'll fight you one after another. And like we said, the little kid that steps out, buff as hell. The old guy, buff as hell. The short guy who just happens to be sat down and he's really, really tall.
Yes.
The farmer that just punches him in the gut
Yes.
and takes him out. Like it was really, really good. Like it was edited well. The timings worked perfectly. Really, really, really fun stuff. The landlady doing the Bruce Lee impression,
Yeah.
as you've said, perfect. I loved Singing Bane trying to throw knives at the landlady. That again, and her just turning around going, "Who's throwing handles?" That's great. Yeah, really, really fun. Ian, do you recommend Kung Fu Hustle?
Yes, 1,000 times yes. I love Kung Fu, I love comedy, and Kung Fu Hustle gave me both of it in massive, huge dollops. I'll admit, I don't watch this movie all of the time. I've seen it maybe 5 or 6 times, but if I look at it on my shelf, I immediately just think of all the most amazing sequences I could watch all over again. And I'm like, is it time? Maybe not. I'll go watch some proper Kung Fu. And then I'll come back and watch Stephen Chow just rip the shit out of all of it.
Hell yeah. Oh, for sure, this is getting my recommendation. It's a classic. It's a kung fu action comedy that pays tribute to the genre and legacy of Hong Kong cinema. A brilliant blend of Chinese martial arts mixed with fantasy versions of those fighting styles in the form of superpowers with impressive choreography and cinematography. The comedic timings are also perfect, resulting in hilarious spectacles of comedy and action with a star-studded cast bringing these incredible, memorable characters to life. The comedy and references come quick and fast, so if you miss some, another is sure to make you laugh, and it's also highly entertaining with lots of great fight scenes, musical numbers, and highly stylized sequences, drama and tension. It's exciting and very rewatchable. The only issue or complaint, as we've said, of the film is the aging CGI work, with characters looking like jelly as they fly around or smash through scenery.
Yeah.
It's obviously fake looking now, but as it's a comedy, those issues, they fall to the wayside when you realise just how fun this film is. And if you've never seen it, get a copy. And if you haven't seen it in a while, watch it again. It's that good. It's a film that proves being a good bad guy is harder than it looks. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.